Hello everyone, Eric with OzoneTCG. Today we're taking a look at the new Forbidden and Limited list update. It is effective October 3rd, 2022. We're not going to go through every single item on here, every single card, say the Unlimited section, because there were a lot of changes on there. We're going to more so talk about how this list impacts the next 2 to 4 months of the metagame, particularly with an emphasis on Minneapolis testing. Darkwing Blast will be legal for Minneapolis as far as we're aware, because it does release the day before Minneapolis as far as the kind of the street legal day. OTS release date is a day before, so more likely than not it will be legal. So this list we will probably have through December. Potentially we'll have that December 25th list that was hinted at back in May. Maybe not. Maybe we'll have to wait until January when the next Mage set releases. However, I do want to go through the changes very quickly in case you guys haven't seen it from every other Yu-Gi tuber here. So of course, we're going to go bottoms up, Unlimited, Limited, and then Banned. So Unlimited, Dynamite, True Draco Fighter, Cyber Angel Benton, Shooting Riser Dragon, Fusion Destiny, Nadir Servant, Trickstar Light Stage, Wall of Revealing Light, and then for Limited, Steam the Cloak, Cyberjar, O-Line, Substitute, Spellbook of Judgment, a Pointer, and then for Banned, Fairy Tail Snow, Ronin Totem, Fibrax, Chaos Ruler, and Red Reboot. So we're mostly going to be focusing on the Banned and Limited cards. We're going to touch upon some of the Unlimited cards though. I think, as most people predicted, not that Sprite is dead, it is definitely hurt a lot. Ronin Totem ban definitely disabled a lot of the Totally Awesome plays. It is still possible because of Substitute. It is significantly harder though now to actually summon Totally Awesome in that deck. Tier Limit probably has an easier time doing it with Supreme Seamare and Reno Heart and some other Aqua extenders rather than something like just hard summoning the Totally Awesome in Sprite. But Tier was kind of hit. It was, I mean, Snow shouldn't have ever come back, I don't think. I played that card, of course. I don't like the card ever. It's just insanely broken. And of course, the list missed a few things. We're not going to really talk about that here, though. But what we do want to focus on is what changes. So Fibrax and Chaos Ruler, finally, they addressed, especially Chaos Ruler. Everyone was like, well, Fibrax is a problem. Yeah, we know that. We've known that since day one. Has always enabled stupid combos. But now that Chaos Ruler's also gone, Punk is basically a dead engine for any decks, really. Now, Adventure hasn't been hit whatsoever. You can still play the Adventure engine with everything legal still. I assume because they're going to print Super Draco back. That's my guess. Maybe even an ulti Rite of Erebisi or something like that. So, Punk as an engine is basically dead. So, Tier Limit, Punk, especially including the Frog cards, basically is unplayable now. Not that you really use Ronin Totem for Synchro Summons because it can't be used for it, but the Chaos Ruler milling 5 in addition to all your other Tier Limit cards, milling anything, you can't do it anymore. So this list is effective from a week from the day of recording. So, again, all the regionals that will be using this new list then. Fibrax, of course, I'm so glad this card's finally gone. I have hated this card since day one. Again, I've played it a bunch, especially in the Sword Soul, the Auroradon version of Sword Soul. I'm glad to see that we have Steam the Cloak and O-Line back, because we're going to talk about those. Those are really interesting for Danger tier piles. Yeah, everything else, like the Fusion Destiny, will probably see played in tier. I know Hani Jahari was playing a Fusion Destiny Tier Limit variant, just piling on the hand traps, playing some fusions each turn, and going from there using DP to destroy your own tier monsters to trigger their effects. Light Stage, I think that's going to be played in Sprite too, because the Libelle is a level 2 that can special summon itself, and then Light Stage locks the back row. I think Sprite has to adapt by just basically turboing Shifter at this point. So kind of what OCG did right before Darkwing Blast released in that region. They kind of focus on using the Heraldic Seas monster to add back Shifter, and they just not play any cards, basically. Or if they did, they would all be banished. They wouldn't really go into Toad at all. I think Toad was still legal then, or maybe had just been banned, something like that. That's kind of where I think Sprite has to adapt to, and then just focusing on Mystic Mind, because unfortunately Mystic Mind is still at 3 in the game. However, overall, I do think this is a very good change. What I do expect, though, is that Tier Limit will probably be again the best deck, but now it's just cemented, solidified. Maybe we'll have some kind of midway, halfway point Banlist in November, early December, something like that, with Magnificent Maven's release. Not entirely sure, but for right now, be prepared to play against a bunch of tier limit. I know Perla Reyno's jumped to like $120, $150 just in the past like 12 hours since the list was revealed. So basically, you want to be prepared to play against a bunch of tier limit. Now, there are going to be more variants, so you can play the Danger version that like a lot of people have been playing. Obviously, the Punk version, as mentioned, is going to be dropped off basically entirely. It's really hard to use that engine now, even though they are quite powerful cards, because Fibrex and Chaos Ruler don't exist anymore. There's not a whole lot of benefit to playing 6 cards that you really don't want to draw at all, besides maybe E-Telly. However, I think moving forward, Dragon Link, even though that people are saying that version's dead, the deck's dead, at least until Darkwing Blast, Fibrex and Chaos Ruler, it hurts for the time being. Again, we are less than a month away from Darkwing Blast's release. We're about 3.5-ish weeks away, which kind of soon, actually. We'll probably see spoilers in the next couple weeks. We kind of want to talk about how to prepare for that. So I think for right now, for the next 3.5, 4 weeks, Dragon Link probably won't be played whatsoever. Not that it really was. It is still technically playable because, again, the adventure stuff is still legal. You can still play Rose Dragon, though it is significantly harder to summon because you only have the single copy to summon into Baron. And you don't really have the Chaos Ruler to go into, again, Baron, if you go like Shinobi Necro, if you play any of those versions, or have just the free body for Borderland. However, I think Dragon Link will be a really good deck to pick up right now, simply because the Beasted, or Bisted, if you follow some of the other translations, are insanely powerful. Basically, every single deck is going to be playing those Beasted cards, as well as some of the Kashtira cards. We'll talk about those in a different video. But in the meantime, until then, be prepared to play against tier limit number 1. If you're not playing tier limit, you're probably going to want to play a shifter deck, whether that be Fluondreeze or Exosister. Now, Fluondreeze probably is going to be more popular than Exosister. I think it's because it's easier, just a little bit. Also doesn't lose to as many cards as something like Exosister. Some of the side deck options that are probably going to be present in this format are very good against Exosister. They may be good against Fluondreeze, but I think Exosister has a harder time playing through a lot of them because they are just inherently smaller and they really can't do anything if they are not able to access their Xyz. Whereas Fluondreeze, even if you have something like Skill Drain up or There Can Be Only One, it's harder with There Can Be Only One, but you can still tribute over some of those Floodgate-esque cards. So I think we'll see a little bit more of that. Drytron I don't really think is a very viable option, even though we do still have Herald of the Orange Light at 3 and Benton at 3 now. I just don't see it really doing too much. It's really hard to play that deck in current format, not because it's difficult, but everything just does everything better. Everything else, all Sprite did everything better. Still does, I think. And, of course, Tier Limit does everything better. You can lock out some of those cards from there. And then I think we'll see something like Steam, maybe O-Line, but probably just Steam more so, played in Tier Limit. So Steam, it's a dark card, it's a Dark Winged Beast, but the token it summons is a Wind Aqua. So the Aqua is interesting. As far as I'm aware, you can use the tokens, because it's Aqua, as fusion material for your Tier Limit monsters, particularly Kit Kalos, which requires, of course, the 1 Tier Limit monster and 1 Aqua, or for Kaleido Heart, which requires the Tier Limit monster, Reno Heart specifically, and 2 Aqua monsters. So you can still technically use those tokens. I think we might see that just as another option. I think it's still going to Almirage from there, maybe even something like maybe Sprite, I don't know, just to make a free link too. That's entirely possible as well, that we'll see that. I don't know how Sprite will adapt otherwise. It's going to be really, really hard, but they'll probably have to play just like Mystic Mind, Beat Cop, something like that. Maybe even throw in Fusion Destiny. I know we don't have Verde Anaconda legal, thankfully, but Fusion Destiny will probably be a threat in this format, and its price has already indicated that. Again, the Trickstar Light Stage will definitely see that being played, especially versus more back row decks. But as far as Tier Limit, I think we're going to see branching off into like 2 or 3 variants. I think we'll probably see a more hand trap heavy version, or just a slower version of the deck that doesn't really play as many danger cards, doesn't really play any danger cards or any super powerful cards. I think the other variant will, of course, be the danger version, But going back to the hand trap version, we'll probably see it play 12 to 15 hand traps, maybe Fusion Destiny, maybe Destroyer Phoenix Enforced or something like that, just to see what it can do with its new little tools. I think overall that version is worth playing and has a lot of merit simply because it's able to play through Mystic Mine much easier overall than some of the other variants, unless you just turbo out Eradicator Epidemic Virus, which, again, the Danger version will probably focus on doing that instead of Snow, because obviously you can't play Snow anymore. I think the idea is just to, even though that a lot of decks will want to play power spells, I don't think it's nearly as viable. I think the hand traps are going to come back because of Eradicator's presence. So maybe some of the rogue decks are playing a lot more power spells in order to be able to play. Tear Limit Mirrors are also going to get much more difficult, much more die roll dependent, because if you resolve Dweller, chances are you're going to be fine. As the player, your opponent's probably not going to have a very good time if they're on the tier limit as well, regardless of version. So yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting format to see. And then again, we have Darkwing Blast coming out, and then Magnificent Mavens. I just don't know how tier limit how else it'll adapt. I could see another version of the deck doing well, and that would be the Scareclaw version. Trift Gaming was talking about that. I don't think that it's nearly as strong as the Danger version, but because the adventure stuff is still legal, it is probably still worth looking at. I really like that version. I absolutely love the Scareclaw cards. They are so cool, and the fact that they can make Curious relatively easily is also has some merit there. Definitely going to be playing and testing some other versions of that deck. We'll probably talk about the Tier Limits Therion deck. Kind of dropped off after first couple weeks. Honestly, it was just outclassed overall by the Danger variant. It's really hard to play versus that variant, unless you have Godly Mills every single time, but we'll probably adapt it in some way to the format, because I think there is some merit to being able to go second. It is harder to play through Shifter, though, with that variant, especially because your Therion cards are kind of dead if you don't have access to the graveyard whatsoever. Shifter is going to be a problem in this format. We'll probably see it as a problem once Darkwing Blast is legal as well. Some of the rogue decks, of course, will have to adapt, like I said, but I just don't see a whole lot of other rogue decks doing well. Nadir Servant, I could probably see some like Tier Limit Shit-All variant coming out that plays Dogmatica, something like that. We'll probably see Nadir Servant played a lot more once Darkwing Blast comes out, because there are some branded support cards that do very well. Speaking of which, branded Albaz is probably going to be okay to play now. A little bit better, especially because Scythe is still legal. A lot of combo decks that were able to use Scythe earlier, you can still do it. Okay, so let me preface this with, you can still do it. You can still use Shooting Rise or send what's it called? Send Scythe, and then it becomes level 2, and then during your opponent's turn, you can use Baron. However, usually the Shooting Rise or sending Scythe meant that it became level 2, and then you use your Chaos Ruler. Well, Chaos Ruler is no longer legal. It's going to be a lot hard to get a better level 8 Synchro out. Generally speaking, you won't have one. That hurts a lot of combo variants of it. However, branded can still use Artifact Scythe, and it plays around like DD Crow, Call by the Grave, any of the Shifter-like effect or Crow-like effects with the Beasted cards. So you can use Branded Fusion, sending Artifact Scythe and Fallen of Albaz to go to Albion the Branded Dragon, and then fuse from there. They'll get banished, but Branded Expulsion allows you to summon from banished and use summon both the Scythe and whatever monster you banished, or whatever, like the Fallen of Albaz. I think that's worth considering, especially if the format's overall slower besides the Danger tier and Adventure tier variants. I think we'll probably see Adventure Sprite actually be a deck as well. I could see just being able to turbo out Griffin Rider every turn and Illegal Knight every single turn. That'll probably be playable in some way. Again, we'll have to see, but I think those are worth considering, just in the back of your mind while you're starting to playtest for this format. We'll have a lot of videos out this week regarding some new decks and new lists with everything. I just don't see how a lot of other decks can compete with Tier. It's going to be really hard. If your deck can summon Dweller and protect that Dweller, maybe it's fine. I just don't see a whole lot of decks playing it. There's also the Lunalight Tier Limit deck. Harder to play though, but it is technically playable, so we'll probably explore that at some point as well. It plays a lot of dangers. It feels a lot like Lunalight Orcus from late 2019. Let me know what you guys think about this. I like this list overall. It only missed a few things. It only missed Mystic Mine, of course, and it definitely missed Call by the Grave. I would argue it missed like Super Poly and other blowout cards like that, maybe even Curious for a harder hit to Tearlament. However, I understand that they don't want to hit those cards quite yet. I could see those later on. But I just think that those are required basically for Tearlament to also play, and required for some other decks to play against Tearlament specifically. So yeah, it's an interesting list. I don't think it's a bad list like a lot of people are speculating. It didn't hit everything that it probably should have. There's probably a reason for it. Maybe Mystic Mind's getting an ulti-print. Maybe we'll see it hit later. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about the list and about what you guys think are going to be the better decks moving forward. Again, watch out for the other videos that we have regarding Theory before Minneapolis and leading up to YCS Minneapolis. Eric with OzoneTCG. Thank you as always for watching.